Hello, thanks for joining me today for a discussion concerning Taiwan, its ports, and why these ports may be a major vulnerability for Taiwan. Taiwan's ports are of vital importance because Taiwan may not be capable of surviving a blockade by the PRC for more than a few months. If access to these ports is blocked, Taiwan will be unable to support itself unassisted for more than 90 days, according to many experts. Taiwan's ports handle the vast majority of trade, including trans-shipments between other economies. Also important is the economic impact. Taiwan's economy would suffer greatly in the event of a blockade or even a quarantine executed by the PRC, as this would seriously damage all of their export-oriented industries. The largest port in Taiwan happens to be the most strategically positioned port in Taiwan. The port of Kaohsiung is positioned on the southwest quadrant of the island, where more than 10 million containers are transshipped each year. Each day, the port of Kaohsiung sees 150 vessels pass daily, where they are serviced at one of their 115 wharfs that support energy, heavy industry, shipbuilding, petrochemical raw material, and yacht manufacturing service zones. The port is strategically located in proximity to the vitally important Bashi Channel. The Bashi Channel lies between the southern tip of Taiwan and the northernmost island of the Philippine archipelago. This narrow passageway serves as a gateway to the South China Sea and is a major shipping lane for commercial traffic as well as for military vessels. The proximity of Kaohsiung Port to the Bashi Channel makes its preservation even more important for Taiwan and its allies. Now that context has been provided, let's discuss the threat and a couple of the dominant adversary courses of action that may manifest if the PRC were to engage in direct aggression against Taiwan. The Center for Strategic and International Studies published a paper titled How China Could Blockade Taiwan, and in the paper they go into a detailed discussion and lay down what the blockades or quarantine would look like if China decided to escalate in this manner. I won't cover the paper in detail, but I would like to touch on an early point made in the paper regarding Taiwan's reliance on imports to sustain itself. In this scatter plot, the x-axis is exports as a percentage of GDP, and the y-axis represents imports as a percentage of GDP. And as you can see, Taiwan is well above most of the Western world at over 60%. Most dangerous for Taiwan is its reliance on foreign energy supplies. Taiwan imports about 97% of its energy. What I did is to capture the two prevailing courses of action that the PRC may use to escalate if a kinetic campaign was initiated. This slide is pretty busy, but I think that you'll be able to get an idea of what the PRC may be considering. The first option that is considered plausible is that the PRC may conduct a quarantine of Taiwan with the establishment of what I would call a loose maritime exclusion zone, or MES. That's just my understanding, but essentially what China would do is to use law enforcement forces such as the China Coast Guard to greatly reduce or completely abolish all trade with Taiwan. This would be designed to punish Taiwan and is more about demonstrating Beijing's power and influence over the region rather than through military means. The second option would be for the PLA to conduct an all-out blockade that would involve kinetic acts of war against Taiwan. This course of action is considered the most likely course of action because it is based off of PLA doctrine and better aligns with the aggressive posturing seen in the South China Sea over the last couple of years. Analysts have postulated that a blockade of this scale may be initiated through a 7-day live-fire exercise conducted off the coast of Taiwan that includes a blockade of Taiwan's 6 principal ports. A maritime exclusion zone would be enforced by the PLA Navy that includes the entire Taiwan Strait. The PLA Navy would enter Taiwan's territorial sea in order to establish 5 tightly controlled port zones that would be designed to cover all of Taiwan's ports. Sea mines would be in place to help enforce the zones, and finally, a joint strategic aerial patrol would be conducted a few days into the exercise with the Russian Air Force. The patrol would be flown over the East China Sea and the Sea of Japan in an effort to dissuade Japan's involvement and to alert the West of Russia's cooperation with the PRC. An all-out blockade, though highly escalatory, provides China with more options. So if you look at this through their lens, they see this as an optimal approach. An approach that would cripple Taiwan and force them to the negotiating table or set the conditions for a successful invasion of Taiwan. The fact that Taiwan is so reliant on imports for energy contributes to this calculus and makes it an almost irresistible option for the PRC. China is aware of the international political and economic sanctions to such a blockade, and this is likely the only thing keeping them from executing. But if the time comes, it is likely that China will have to contend with direct military interventions from the United States and Japan. In recap, I'd like to stress that the vulnerability of Taiwan's ports, especially Kaohsiung, is one of Taiwan's chief concerns. They realize that the security of their territorial waters and ports cannot be neglected. In future segments, I'll examine the ports in depth and discuss defensive measures in place, as well as joint exercises being conducted. I'd like to thank you for watching today, and let me know if you have recommendations for future content. Thanks again.